So I'm talking to Damian Ochoa. We're going to talk about the problems that Damian has been having with mold in his market rate housing on Treasure Island.
Yes.
Yes.
So, again, like I had mentioned to you on the phone, we moved out here on December 1st of 2009. And I would say it was probably the early spring of 2010, I noticed that there was a mold mildew issue in the master bedroom. And it wasn't just in the closet. It was on shoes, it was on belts, it was on clothing, but it had gone under the bed. It started getting on the floorboards, on the walls, everywhere. And so I had alerted the property manager, Dan Stone. He's a licensed contractor. He came out, he looked at it, he called in a mold remediation specialist. They took air samples. They acknowledged that there was an issue.
Was this black mold or was this other kinds of mold?
It was black mold, it was green mold, it was white mold. There were many different colorations of it.
So it wasn't just the dread black mold.
No.
It was toxic mold. We're
Yes.
using that as a general category.
Absolutely. It was toxic. It was unhealthy. I knew from hearing stories about Brittany Murphy dying from breathing in mold and all these things that it was a concern. And my concern more was around health concerns, around spending the most time in that room because we sleep in that room. What was that going to do to our respiratory system? So Dan and I went back and forth. They removed part of the wall. They tried to remediate the situation. And then it was decided that it was a huge inconvenience. We ended up that we were going to move. So on October 1st of 2010, we moved directly. I moved directly across the street.
Just you?
Just me. My partner and I had split up for a while. He moved to a different county, and I stayed on the island, and I lived by myself until we reconciled and blah, 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 blah. That's a different point, but he now lives there again.
Did that division between you, was that in any way exacerbated by the mold problem?
Yeah, I mean, it was an issue, and we just found that once we needed to move, it was just best if we took a break in our relationship at that point as well.
So it was a convenience more than anything at
Yes.
this point. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
So go ahead.
But my partner also had issues with Dan. So Dan would try to deal with me directly about the mold issue, even though we were both on the lease, and he wouldn't CC my partner, and so he would get pissed about that, and then he would have conversations with Dan, and it just got complicated. I went ahead and I moved across the street, and there was supposed to be an inspection before I moved in. And I have the actual document still that was never filled out. They were supposed to shampoo my carpets before I moved in. They did not do that. The movers damaged a great deal of my property. They left all my windows open while I was at work. I came home like at 8 o'clock at night, and every single window in my house was wide open. And anybody could have got in there because it's on the ground level. So then I had to file a complaint with Dan. We had to negotiate over the damaged property. And so then we ended up settling that. And I would have to say that June of 2011, so we're coming up on 3 years now, I had lodged a complaint that there was mold and mildew in the new unit. And Dan came out with the head of maintenance.
So this is like more mold.
Yeah, this is new mold in the new unit. In the new unit that I moved from.
Which tells you that mold is proliferated all over
Oh, it's
this
prevalent.
island.
It's everywhere. It's everywhere.
And it's nearly impossible to get away from it if you live on Treasure Island.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I was also told is that by Dan was that all the units were done after a model, and they were all constructed in Virginia, the state of Virginia, and they took no consideration that it was going to be surrounded by water and what the temperature is like in California. So that in itself poses issues.
When did the military move onto this island? These were all military structures.
I believe that some of these units were done in the late 60s, early 70s.
The point is, these buildings were constructed before we understood about black mold, before they understood about stuff like what it's like on an island, what California is like. I mean, this was like a while back.
Absolutely.
And it was for the military families. These buildings were built for the military way before civilians were allowed to move into
Absolutely.
them. Okay, so
Yes.
then that's an exacerbating factor.
Dan came out and he ended up sending me a letter in June stating that there was no mold, that they did not find anything out of the ordinary. And then I believe that it was in, I think maybe another 6 months or 9 months went by, and I really didn't notice anything besides the windowsills and things like that, which is common. Like that comes because of the moisture and the humidity and being surrounded by water. And then I went ahead and told him, contacted him again in, I think it was the summer of 2012, to let him know that it was back and that I wanted him to come to address it. So he came out, he looked at it, I showed him my clothing, I showed him my shoes. He said, yes, there's an issue. And then we went back and forth on it for a short time. And then that's when he ended up hiring this woman, Elizabeth Mullen. And she was the assistant property manager, and she lasted less than 2 months out here. So when he hired her, he went ahead and delegated a bunch of these issues onto her. So when she came on board, I had to bring her up to speed, even though that wasn't my job. Dan should have brought her up to speed on what was going on. So I had to get her up to speed of what the issues were. She had to come out and look at the unit. And of course, by that time, I already cleaned up the mold and the issues that were going on in the closet. So then she had a mold remediation specialist come out. They did a bunch of testing. And then she sends me this report that has pictures, not even for my unit, and states that there's absolutely no issue. And then shortly after that, she was terminated. And so at that time, I told him that it needed to be addressed and he needed to deal with it. He ended up bringing out this guy Bob, and not Bob Beck from Tited, guy Bob that is the owner of this mold remediation company. He came out. It cost $1,500 for him to come out there and do an assessment. And my partner and I had already knew. It's common sense. You don't have to be a specialist to realize where some of this mildew and mold may be coming from. Maybe if the sprinkler system wouldn't be hitting our bedroom wall. Maybe if the gutters, that they had something that would drain it away from the building so it doesn't seep down into the foundation. Simple things like that. So one of the things he also said was, well, you really need to air out the place. I said, look, I air it out. When I'm home, all the windows are open. When we take showers, it's aired out. It does not have to really deal with that. You need to do something about it. So Bob comes out. They move the sprinkler. They deal with that. They cut out the rug and the padding in the master bedroom closet. I go ahead and notify Dan that there's about $400 worth of damage to my property, clothing, things that I have to throw out. I have an extensive wardrobe of things that I have in that bedroom.
So this is more property damage.
The more property damage. And so we ended up settling on that in January of 2014. And it was only around like $440, I believe. So I believe that, there wasn't an issue. I never, though, received a report from Bob about his $1,500 consultation. And so then it was probably the end of February, the beginning of March of 2014.
Okay.
I noticed that it was back again. So I contacted Dan, and to my surprise, not really. He was, well, I'm at a loss of what to do. I don't know where it's coming from. I don't know what else to do. Why don't you think about some things maybe that we can do and all brainstorm it and let's get back together on this.